Hare Krishna. I told you that the local police, there's a, the city's divided up into different divisions. And the guy in charge of the PB division, somebody moved into that condo next door, across the alley, and complained about Mangalarti. You know what the guy told him? He said, "You moved next to a Hare Krishna temple, what do you expect?" That was it. End of the conversation. Yeah, we used to have to put padding on the doors, all kinds of things we did, But they've so much we've outlived everybody. Now you put me on the spot. I don't accept that we always need a drum. Just shanti shanti. We don't always need a drum. And I have my idiosyncrasies, of which many of you have suffered through. But yeah, he can play the drum. But I often get distracted because they're a little slow or they're a little fast, and I'd rather just have, a steady beat. But Vijayamani did pretty good yesterday, or last Sunday, so let's hope it's not a fluke. Jarado Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jarado Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopijana Balava Girivanadari Gopijana Balava Girivanadari Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamun Tiravanatari Jamun Tiravanatari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Kopejana Balaba Girivanadari Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamun Tiravanatari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Boom! Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari. Jai Vishnupad Paramahansa Padiba Chikacharya Sishman Divine Grace of Achadan Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki. ISKCON BBT founder Charya, His Divine Grace. AC Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki. I've forgotten where I am. I mean, I know I'm in San Diego in Bhagavatam, but did I say the full Jai-om? Anyway, all glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritcha Naram Chaivat Laram Chaivam Narotama Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayat. The Bhagavatam is the Brita's son. Krishna Swadamo Pagate Damaganadi Bisaha Kalanasa Dashamesha Parana Konadodata. The Bhagavatam is the Brita's son. It's arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied with knowledge, religion, etc. Persons who have lost their vision to the dense darkness at the age of Kali shall get light out of this Purana. Before beginning our study of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should first offer our respects to the author Srila Vyasadeva, our spiritual master Srila Prabhupada, and the Badrinarayan Rishi. Om Namo, that we said. All right. As you can tell, I'm partially here today. Let's look at the verse. By my calculations, which obviously are a little fuzzy today, we are at the 7th canto. We are at chapter 8, and we're at text 10. Is that correct? Yes. All right, there's some things that are stable in the universe. Dasyun pura san na vijitya lumpato manyanta eke swa jita disho dasa jitatmano gyasya samasya dehinam saro swamoha prabhava kuta pare tasyun purasana vitya lumpato manyanta eke svajita dishodasa jitatmano gyasya samasya dehinam Sadho swamoha prabhava kuta pare. Dasyum purasana nitya lumpato. Manyanta eke swajita disho dasa. Jitatmano gyasya samasya dehinam. Sadho swamoha prabhava kuta pare. Dasyun purasana vichitya lumpato. Manyanta eke svajita disho dasa. Jitatmano gyasya samasya dehinam. Sadho swamoha prabhava kuta pare. Dasyun purashana vijitya lumpato. Manyanta eke svajita disho dasa. Sadho swamoha prabhava. Not all at once now. Dasyun parasat. You want to give it a shot, Mataji? Dasyun purasana vijitya hampito. Manyanta eke svajita disho dasa. Jitatmano jakya samasya dehinam. Sadho swamoha prabhava kuta pare. Dasyun, plunderers. Pura, in the beginning. Sat, 6. Na, not. Vijitya, conquering. Lumpata, stealing all one's possessions. Manyate, consider. Eke, some. Svajita, conquered. Dishadasa, the 10 directions. Jita Atmana, one who has conquered his senses. Yasya, learned. Samasya, equipoised. Dehinam, to all living entities. Sadho, of such a saintly person. Svamoha prabhava, created by one's own illusion. Kuta, where? Pare, enemies or opposing elements. In former times, there were many. Now, who's speaking? Do we know? Other than Dravida? Who's speaking? Nobody knows? Prahlad Maharaj, okay. Now, the next one should be an easy one. Who is Prahlad Maharaj speaking to? His father, Hiranyakasipu. Okay, just so we set the And he's, as is described by Dravida yesterday, he moves one eyebrow and all the demigods are trembling. And here's this innocent little boy, 5-year-old boy. Just picture for a minute the scene, right? Talk about truth to power. Huh? Yeah. So here we go. Prahlad Maharaj, he says, in former times, there were many fools like you who didn't conquer the 6 enemies that steal away the wealth of the body. Those fools were very proud, thinking, I have conquered all enemies in all 10 directions. But if a person is victorious over the 6 enemies and is equipoised towards all enemies, for him there are no enemies. Enemies are merely imagined by one in ignorance. Also, you say, in former times, there were many fools like you who did not conquer the 6 enemies that steal away the wealth of the body. These fools were very proud, thinking, I have conquered all enemies in all 10 directions. But if a person is victorious over the 6 enemies and is equipoised towards all living entities, for him there are no enemies. Enemies are merely imagined by one in ignorance. In the material world, everyone is thinking that he has conquered his enemies, not understanding that his enemies are his uncontrolled mind and 5 senses. Manasastin Indyani Prakrutistani Karshate, from the Bhagavad Gita 15:7. Struggling very hard with the 6 senses, which include the mind. In the material world, everyone has become a servant of the senses. Originally, everyone is a servant of Krishna, but in ignorance, one forgets this. And thus, one is engaged in service of Maya through lusty desires, anger, greed, illusion, madness, and jealousy. Those are the 6 enemies. Everyone is actually dependent on the reactions of the material laws, but still one thinks himself independent and thinks that he has conquered all directions. In conclusion, one who thinks that he has many enemies is an ignorant man, whereas one who is in Krishna consciousness knows that there are no enemies but those within oneself, the uncontrolled mind and senses. Om Gana Timarandasya Gana Gana Salakaya Jakshusha Militangena Tazani Shi Gurave Namaha. Maybe somebody could get some fresh water. Is that it? Just and get some Maha water. Yeah. I don't want to make your life complicated, but just give that a pitch. You can deliver one of the plants out there, and then put some fresh. Thank you. So, a couple things, and then I want to share a couple blissful points made during the Bhagavatam classes in Mayapur. But we have a duty. Prabhupada said we are not nonviolent. There was a devotee named in Germany, and his name started with an M. And I forget his name, it slips my mind at the moment. But he was intense. He was one of the top book distributors. Now, don't try this. You have to be German, and you have to be this particular devotee. He would sit down. He was one of the first devotees to start to sell sets of Bhagavatams. He would sit down next to someone sitting on a bench. The person is sitting on the bench in a park in German city. The birds are twittering. Thank you very much, Prabhu. And the man is minding his own business, as they say. Manihar. I knew it would come back to me. So Manihar would sit down next to him, pull out a cigarette lighter, and light the guy's newspaper on fire. Oh my God, you can imagine. And he would say, I could not stand to see you in such anxiety reading that Prajalpa. take this, boom, and give him a first canto Bhagavatam, you know. Actually, Prithu Prabhu told me about this. Prithu said, people would buy a book, they thought either he's right or he's completely crazy. Either way, you want to just pacify him, you know. So I don't recommend we try that, but Prabhupada said, I did not come, I came to disturb. I'm not nonviolent. Of course, one other time he said, we're not nonviolent, and then he held up a gulab jam and said, these are our bullets. So our Sankarshan is not violent. I mean, it's not nonviolent. He's disturbing many people's material life. They get prasadam, they never forget it. Nice prasadam. But the point is, we should not, our goal is not to become loved and adored by everyone on the street. There was a section, oh, you're going to have a long life, Sankarshan. We just mentioned your name. There was a devotee, and we're not, you know, Prabhupada said the intelligence, a sign of intelligence is the ability to balance opposing points within the mind. People want a binary world. It's black or it's white. It's in or it's out. It's right or it's wrong. But the world is nuanced. And I mean, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu starts off saying Achinta Beta Beta Tattva, simultaneously one and different. That requires the ability to balance apparently opposing points within the mind and find the synthesis or the thread and the balance of them. So don't go one way or don't go the other way. But we are not, here we see with Prahlad Maharaj, our duty is not to just have everybody love us. I've been to some interfaith, you know, well, I'll say this. We're still working on the ISKCON Constitution, the perennial project. And there was a devotee who wrote a section that was on interfaith. And it was all happiness and light and love and trust, and we're all okay. If you recognize the Supreme Lord, you know that's good. Like Prabhupada said, when it says, God give us this day our daily bread, Prabhupada said that's good. They're recognizing the source. It may be motivated by love of bread, not love of God, but okay, it's something. Prabhupada says, right in the TLC, he says it's something, but not much. I was so impressed when I read that, you know. So it's not our goal that everybody's peaceful and happy. And there was a book, wasn't there? I'm okay, you're okay? You know, that everybody's, you know. No. So in Greek mythology, there's a place where, who is the guy? Ulysses. Ulysses stopped, called the land of the lotus. His sailors got off and visited the land of the lotus eaters. And eating the lotus made everybody just passive. And he couldn't get them back on the ship. He couldn't get them to sail. I think there were some nymphs there. But they were just, everything's okay. Well, it's not everything's okay. We're going off a cliff at the time of death. We're going to take birth as who knows. Prabhupada says whereabouts unknown. You know, by centrifugal force, you spin something, and where does it go? So we're being spun by the material nature, and at the time of death, what are we thinking about? And where are we going to go? We're not even guaranteed of a human form. So it's not that everything's okay, no. So it's not that we want everyone, that our business is to make everyone feel good about their status, where they are, and everything's okay, and can't we all just love each other? We don't even know what love means. Love usually means lust. So here we see Prahlad Maharaj, the paragon, the archetype, innocent, speaking truth to power. And that is what our Krishna consciousness movement is meant to do. Prabhupada said, we have come to disturb them. Prabhupada said, when you churn milk, it separates into butter and whey. So things that we're meant to separate. There's asuras and suras. Okay, that's the point. That doesn't mean that you go out and, if you talk to somebody and you come home with a black eye from Sankirtan because everybody was punching you, my preaching was successful. Prabhupada said the preaching is that they take it, But still, we can't bend the truth because it won't help them in the ultimate issue. Okay. I wanted to read, there was a cartoon character years ago when I was a kid, so you can figure. But one of his motto is, we found the enemy and the enemy is us. I didn't want to say. Everybody... It's so much easier if the enemy is outside. We often think, if we're upset in the temple, well, we got a heavy temple president, or it's the temple treasurer, it's our Sankirtan leader, it's this, the head pujari, yeah. It's so much easier if the problem is external. Because if it's internal, what does that mean? Anybody know? Other than Dravida? Anybody know? Why is it easier if the enemy's outside? Why is it difficult if the enemy's inside? Huh? Who said that? Yeah, way to go, Victor. If it's inside, it's your problem. Change is one of the most difficult things for people. People, and probably as an example, I don't want to get too extreme. But the point is that if I have to do the heavy lifting, I don't really want to do that. It's much easier to blame someone else, to blame the externals, then I don't have to change. It's not my fault. It's not my problem. But the fact of the matter is, we do not control conditions. We don't control people around us. We don't control what happens. I mean, we can influence to the best of our ability, but often the opposite happens. So if we can't control externals, we can't control what happens to us, what can we control? Our reaction. We can control how we respond to it. Somebody can say, we can think, yeah. Or we can think, hey, must be having a bad day. It's not probably had a fight with his wife. Didn't get enough prasadam for breakfast. Who knows? But, it's not my issue. I'm not going to jump in the mud with him. Doesn't make any sense. So we don't have any enemies. We have our own mind and we have our senses. That's the real problem. Who is the devotee? Oh, Dairam. The older devotees know Dairam. He's one of the heroes of Mayapur. And he has been super sick. Oh, yeah, he's been at death's door for a number of years. And finally, I don't know exactly where he got the tip. I think his wife talked to somebody, and he got and he was, the devotees had raised money from around the world. He'd gone to some of the best hospitals in the world, and nobody could figure out what it was, and. And it turns out like a $5 over-the-counter, what do they call those things, just store medicine, just a common stock item. Turned it right around. Yeah, I saw him in Mayapur. He said, I can't believe it. He's got his strength back. He's got his appetite back. He's, it's turned the corner. So if you don't, we can do so many external things, but if we don't go to the cause of the problem, just like with Ravana, you had to shoot him in the heart. All the heads keep popping back. So I wanted to read we have to understand what our real condition is. So there's a verse in the Bhagavatam, one of the lines is Dharmasya Hyapavargasya, that the purpose of Dharma, and sometimes it's translated as liberation, but what is the definition of liberation? Like, what do we say, a theist and an atheist? You put an A in front of it, it becomes the opposite. What's another one? Normal, abnormal. You get the idea. You just put and it makes it the opposite thing. So, apavarga, what is the root of the word apavarga? Dravida. I just want to know the name. Pavarga. We're going to break it down in a minute. We're going to break it down in a minute. So there's what Dharma said. The real goal of Dharma is to come to the stage of apavarga, to break the cycle of pavarga. I mean, Dravida is right, but I want to go in a certain direction. So then what is pavarga? We should ask. Bondage. Now, what is that bondage broken down to? What is the actual... In Greek mythology, I don't know why I'm thinking about Greek mythology, but in Greek mythology, there was, they opened, I forget the lead up to it, it doesn't really matter, but there was Pandora's box. Don't open Pandora's box. And somebody opened Pandora's box. You can tell me later on, Ishtadev. And all the horrible things, pestilence, war, disease, it all came out. And you know what was at the bottom of the box? The last thing in Pandora's, after all the miseries of life came off, what was left in the bottom? Hope. Who said that? Yeah, hope. Hope was at the bottom. And the fact of the matter is, what does Prabhupada say? Trust no future, however bright. They're always hoping. Some are... You know, they always say, I don't know if it's actually true, but one of the definitions of insanity is to keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. So people are suffering pavarga. Prabhupada breaks it down. We're going to read that in a minute. But we're always suffering, and we think, you know, somehow or other we're going to do the same kind of thing, and everything's going to get better, or it's going to be different this time. But no. It's a hope against hope, and it always ends the same. So our actual human condition, Bhagavatam, one thing I love about the Bhagavatam is that the Bhagavatam deals directly with the real human condition. It's talking about life as it is. Somebody said to Prabhupada one time, I was sitting there, somebody said to Prabhupada that the Vedic literature and Bhagavad Gita is outdated. It's from an ancient time. They got on chariots shooting arrows. I mean, how, you know, take me back to the Bronze Age. What is this? Prabhupada said, what's changed? Is it Ecclesiastes or whatever it is says there's nothing new under the sun? Yeah. So Prabhupada said, what's changed? Has birth changed? Has death changed? Has disease changed? Has miseries caused by other living entities? Miseries caused by the material nature? Miseries caused by the mind? Has any of that changed? It's baked in. It's woven into the experience of life in this world. So that's the real issue. Let's look at the real issue first. All these superficial things, so-called cures, all it does is compound the problem. Prabhupada's classic example. In India, and Vedic style, we could say, they burn castor oil lamps. Castor oil lamp. Now, you know, you ever see like a kerosene lamp with a wick, you know? So, what does it take? Person goes down, Prabhupada described it one time. You go down to the river or the kund or wherever it is, and you bathe. You use your loda to bathe. When you're leaving, you take a little bit of water in your loda, and when you walk past your castor bean bush, you throw a little loda on it, a little water on it. I mean, you could time that. It's a millisecond. Well, you could count, okay, getting the water out of the kund, there's a little more time. How much effort was there? And then Prabhupada said, children love a project. So you got some kids. You want to give them a project. The old Tom Sawyer, just painting this fence is so much fun. So he got his friends to paint the fence for him. So you make it into a project. Kids will love to do it. You say, hey, I need help. Forget it. You make it into a project, something adventuresome. Hey, they're on it, right? So the kids, they pick the castor beans when they're ripe twice a year. It's an easy thing. They're like a project. They run it through the grinder, and they run it through a strainer, and they got castor oil, right? And you put it in a lamp, keep it in a jar, keep it in a pot, put it in a lamp, off you go. Well, come on, it's not such quality light, and it has a little more soot, you know. It's got blackens your shoes. You got to clean the lamp. You got to talk the kids into it. What a hassle. Now, look at, we're modern. We just turn on a switch. Hey, you got to go through that whole circus to get your kerosene lamp for a lower quality light, and all I got to do is flick a switch? What? Primitive. But what's behind, like the tip of the iceberg, what's behind that flicking the switch? What comes every month from San Diego Gouge and Extort? SDG&E. What comes? Huge bill. It's going up and up and up and up. So you got to pay for it. And what's behind it? There's a whole infrastructure. There's dams, and there's wires, and there's, generators, and there's all kind. You know how many people died building the Hoover Dam, the one out by Las Vegas? I don't know how many. It was like a couple hundred people died in the process of building that thing. It's all kind of. There's a factory that makes the copper wiring. Now they use fiber optics. I don't know what, but there's a whole thing behind it. And when there's a power outage, forget it. There was a power outage. You can read about it in Lilamrita. I was listening to a recording the other day, and somebody reading. And it was 10 states and 3 provinces in Canada. It was something like 60 million people were inconvenienced. Some guy tripped over a cord in Buffalo, and blew out the whole system. And it was chaos. My father was in New York, and he said it was like a Hieronymus Bosch painting, there's a picture of hell. He said it was all black, and you could hear things crashing into each other and people screaming and gunshots. He just leaned out his hotel window. People stuck in elevators, people stuck in the subway, pitch black, with a bunch of who knows who with you. New Yorkers looking for your wallet in the dark. So the Dr. Mishra, because Prabhupada was saying in Dr. Mishra's, and then Prabhupada there was no room. There was no light. There was no window. That's my point. Prabhupada was in a windowless, that was probably one of the first Prabhupada said it was a dungeon. And the lights blew out. There's no electricity. Prabhupada's all alone in a dark building with people screaming and yelling outside. There was a spike of births. After they got tired screaming and yelling, you can understand what they did in the dark. So, just animals. So Dr. Mishra sent someone with some candles to help Prabhupada. And when they got there, he said, the man knocked on the door, this building supervisor. Prabhupada was very happy to see him. He brought some fruit, some candles and some fruit. And Prabhupada was very, very happy to see him. But he said later on, Dr. Mishra narrates the story, that Prabhupada was just sitting in the dark chanting japa. He was used to, load sharing, they call it in India, blackouts in India. And he was just chanting japa, completely peaceful. So they think they're advanced, but slightest flick of a switch, the whole thing blows out, and there's a whole ripple effect of issues. There's pollution. Where do you want to start? LA, the Shriners are a men's, of course, all those kind of things are dying out, Shriners and Elks, and they were all fraternal orders, and they did charity work. It was good. The ladies had their church groups, and they did. I never saw a homeless person in my life until about, I don't know what. I moved to PB, I think, because the church groups would take care of them, the fraternal organization. Anyway, that's another story. But well, I guess we'll move on because oh geez, look at that. So I wanted to read this Pavarga. What are the real enemies, and what are we're dealing with everything else, everything but the real source of the problem. So this is from the 7th canto, chapter 13, text 25 from the purport. Material life is called Pavarga because here we are subject to 5 different states of suffering, represented by the letters Pa, Fa, Ba, Pa, and Ma. Pa means parishma, very hard labor. We have to work hard. They're working hard. No time. Then now they're working, there's a book, which I have not read, and I don't plan on it, but someone gave me the summary. It's called Faster. And originally, something happens, I would write you a letter. You'd open up the letter, and you'd think, what the? And then you'd think about it, you calm down, you write a letter. The other person who was agitated, 2 weeks ago back before they got the letter delivered on horse, they would have calmed down by then, and things, there was a certain gap of time between the event and the reaction. So then we got telegraph, big advancement. So then you're getting the message is coming a lot faster, and the gap between I can just telegraph right back. Still, it's a couple hours, and the person, So then what happened? And you got a telephone. Well, I can call you right up on the head. Hey, But we got answer machine. I don't always have to answer, right? I can, So I got, But then now people say, well, I left a message on your machine. Previously, you can say I wasn't home. Well, I left a message on your machine. So then the gap is smaller. And then it gets the email. It gets tighter and tighter and tighter. I remember my father would call him home on Friday night, bush-tired. But he had the weekend. He cooled off because my mother kept him pretty much engaged. But, there was a weekend. Now people, at least I can go home at night. I got to come back at 8 o'clock in the morning, but I'm at night. No way now. You're expected, if you're under a job that pays well, you're expected to read your email, work on the weekends, take it home with you on your computer. So people are just fatigued because they don't get any relief. Life is moving faster and faster. The experience of life is moving faster and faster and faster. If you take a watch, a clock, and you keep winding it tighter and tighter and tighter, what happens eventually? You all seen the cartoon movies. Boing! The mainspring just blows. And you've got people are under so much pressure. They got to work 2 jobs. It's just, they're just eat. It's being ground tighter and tighter and tighter. So that's hard labor. We're not going to give a purport on each one of them. And the pa means fena, or foam from the mouth. For example, sometimes we see horse foam in the mouth we see a horse foaming at the mouth with heavy labor. You've all seen the movies. The horse has been running and he's got foam. But people who work in factories, we used to ride the bus, Jefferson Chalmers bus, back to the temple. And on the way, we would stop and pick up all the workers from the Uniroyal Tire Factory. Detroit is another definition of hell. I mean, I tell you, all those, because those, anyway, that's a whole other class. But these big guys, I mean, they could snap one of us in half. A lot of them were from Poland. They were, it's a whole story from Eastern Europe and working hard. And they would fall asleep on the bus, and they would actually foam at the mouth. You'd see it. You see, anyway, so it's hard work, and so much so you have to, like a horse foaming at the mouth. The pa means piartata, disappointment in spite of so much labor. At the end, we find disappointment. You work hard, what do you get for it? What do you actually have of tangible? People are just scraping by. And it's disappointment. They say the greatest happiness is anticipation. It's not the actual experience. It's the anticipation. I'm going to enjoy, I'm going to get it. When I get it, I order from Amazon. When I get it, it's going to make my life perfect. And you get it, it's too small or too big or not the right color. Whatever it is, doesn't work. What is this? It's disappointment. The pa means fear. In material life, there's always the blazing fire of fear, since no one knows what will happen next. We have eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And Prabhupada describes defending as fearing. It's the underlying angst of what's going to happen next. Anything can happen. Anything can happen. You can fall in a manhole, get struck by lightning. There's a guy up here in Mount Palomar. He's a ranger. He's been struck by lightning 3 times. You'd think he'd get another career. No, and the interesting thing is he was blown out of his shoes. I don't know exactly how that works. Twice he was blown out. People, it's a true story. You can Google it. The people ask, has he been affected? When it's about to rain, his hair stands on end. People will call him, hey, how's it look for the Sunday picnic? Nah. My hair's standing on it. He's got a little electric charge there. He's better than the weatherman. But the point I'm trying to make is that, and we know, I forget the lady's name, or the man's name. He was our neighbor 2 doors down the street in Laguna Beach. Came home one day. The wife had changed all the locks on the furniture, on the house, drained all of the accounts, and run off with the dentist. Run off with their dentist. What? I was flying somewhere at one point in time, and I saw, the car pulls up, and the wife's dropping off the husband. She's got 3 kids, got to get back, get them to school. She's in a house coat or whatever, hair and curlers or whatever, She gets a little peck on the cheek from the husband. Bye, dearie, be back in a week. Off she goes. 5 minutes later, I'm just sitting there waiting for the devotee to pick me up. 5 minutes later, this, so-called materially beautiful woman, the guy, snaps off his tie, throws his coat in his briefcase, gives a big embrace to this girl. He's got a Hawaiian shirt underneath, and they're going off to who knows where. He's completely cheating on her. She's a faithful wife, has no idea that this circus is going on with this weasel. Happens all the time. I mean, who was that, Bernie Madoff, who made off with everybody's money? I love his name, just one of the biggest scandals in the world. Talk about honesty in packaging. You're going to give you some, Anyway, it's right there. His name's Madoff. You're going to give him your money? So, but there's that underlying angst. You can stub your toe, it gets infected, and you can drop dead. Little cough. Well, sorry. How long do I have to live, dog? 6. 6 years? 6 weeks. It happens. So this is the real, to recap, very hard labor. Working so hard, sometimes you foam at the mouth. In spite of all that hard work, it never lives up to your expectation. There's disappointment. And the whole time you're in anxiety, when's the, what is it, Govinda Das? It's like a lotus leaf with a drop on it. And the lotus is a flat pad, and it's waxy. You put a drop of water, the slightest ripple, it'll roll right off. That's our status at any moment. So, and finally, in spite of all of that, who is it? Is it Hobbes? That the life is, what is it, brief, beastly, and brutish, or whatever it is. Huh? Brutish and short. I said brief because I wanted it all be bees. But and then what happens? What's the coup de grace? What's the cherry on top of the sundae of all this suffering? What happens? Death. And you're whacked. You know? The devotee, nasty, brutish, and short. That was his analysis of the human experience. And the thing is, you know, a devotee, you know, they say Jesus is, you know, born again. They used to have those bumpers. No, that because I've accepted Jesus, I'm born again. Trivikram Maharaj, who's famous as a heavy preacher, got a bumper sticker made that said, born again, and again, and again. So after all that struggle, then the, you know, chakra of time comes through and lays you low, but that's not it. You know, you don't rest in peace. You recycle and come back out and go through it all over again. I mean, it's a nightmare. I'm sorry, folks, but there it is. So, truth to power. And I think we will end there because we're running. Oh, one last thing. Prabhupada's talking, when you understand the actual, we have to understand the great blessing. I've told it before, and I'm going to tell it again because it's instrumental, or it's a good example. I'm at the LA Ratha Yatra. We're always in the free prasadam booth, the San Diego devotees, since it began, since the first Ratha Yatra. So over how many years now? Huh? 77 first. Yeah, so you can do the math. Since 1977, we've been there. The San Diego devotees serving the free prasadam. It's just wonderful. Thousands of people coming to take prasadam. So things were running smoothly. I think Jamuna had taken over for me. I slipped over to the question and answer booth because I saw that Jayadvaita Maharaj was in it. And I love the way Jayadvaita Maharaj preaches. He's just like, he's an old time, give me that old time religion, you know, give him hell. So there he was, and holding forth. And it was a nice crowd. And so I couldn't, you know, see him directly. I was about 5 or 6 people back. And there were 2 very large men. They were land whales, in all honesty. They were big size. And I could hear Jayadvaita Maharaj say the beginning of spiritual life, the essential understanding is that we are not this body. And one of these land whales turned to his friend and said, boy, that's a relief. So it's a huge understanding, that foundational understanding that I'm not this body. Because thinking that I'm this body and I'm the mind, which is even more difficult to discern, that with the separation. I'm this body, I'm this mind, I'm the senses. Prabhupada said, have you ever seen the guy in the circus? This is Prabhupada's example. You know, with the whip, and they're controlling the tiger, and they're cracking the whip, and that big tiger is just jumping through hoops, and they don't like to jump through a flaming, because they got that big mane, and they've got to jump through a ring of fire. They don't like to do that. But what's happened is they've been hit with that whip so many times, they hear the crack, and they feel that sting. So they're not, and the guy doesn't actually hit them. The ringmaster, whoever's doing it, after they're trained, it's like they just respond to the sound. They hear the sound and they're afraid. And they're, okay, fine. Don't hit me again. I'll do it, you know. But they don't actually hit him. And every now and then, the tiger calculates. It happened to that Siegfried and Roy. The tiger says, hey, wait a minute. You know, I'm 10 times bigger than this guy. And they just turn on him. They say, I've had enough of this. It's like racehorses. It happens up here at Del Mar sometimes. A racehorse, once it realizes, hey, I'm knocking myself out. I'm running in this big circle. What do I get for it? You know, I wind up at the exact same spot. I got some fool on my back kicking me the whole time. I'm done. And they ring, you know, they do, the bell goes off, the cage opens, and every now and then you get a horse who just doesn't run. He says, go ahead, you clowns. I'm out, you know. I'm done with it. So to wake up that I'm not this body, I'm not this mind. This is where this whole material train goes. I'm done. It's the greatest kindness we can give to someone. So here we see Prahlad Maharaj, truth to power, saying, you're a fool. You think you control your enemies? No. You don't even understand who your enemies are. So we can end there. We'll do the Mayapur stuff next Sunday. All glories to Prabhupada. Thank you. Hare Krishna.